Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another list. The last franchise list for a while. Today I'm going to be breaking down the counterpoint to last list's character. Talking about the edgy, hip, 90s mascot, the Blue Blur, who for a while looked like he was giving Mario a run for his money. But as time told, that wasn't the case. Now, I actually started off as a Sonic fan. I had a Genesis first, as you guys might have known from my console retrospective. But I obviously love Mario, and I do think Mario has more good games than Sonic does. This list was a little harder to put together than the Mario list, not because I hadn't played enough of the Sonic games, because there aren't that many good Sonic games. You're kind of pulling the bottom of the barrel to reach a list of 11, at least I think. I do like all of these games. I didn't put like a bad game last. The game at the bottom of the list is just kind of okay. It's got a lot of really good elements, but it's not as well put together as, say, the number 11 on the Mario list. There's a few hot takes in here, I guess. I don't know. I like Sonic. I like a handful of Sonic games, and while I haven't played all of them, I feel like I've played most of the good ones. That's pretty much enough of the preamble. Let's get into it.
Spoilers for this list, there are no sports games, and Mean Bean Machine isn't here because it's just Puyo Pop. Even though the graphics are dated as fuck, I think the isometric view that this game presents itself in is very charming and holds up better than you might expect for it to. The controls take a little bit to get used to, but this game is pretty straightforward and pretty simple for what it is. It was Sonic's first real 3D foray, and even though the Emerald minigame is the worst in the entire franchise, I like that the flickies kind of have their own use. I like the small little design touches that coat each world, and the soundtrack, like all the other Sonic games, like I said in my soundtracks list, is still top-notch. There's a lot of fun to be had in this game. And even though it's really flawed because it's almost a weird experiment, I think it comes together pretty solidly. While one of the more simplistic entries in this series, Sonic Rush at least is a playable game. Which cannot be said of some of the other Sonic games that have 3D graphics and are 2D platformers, like Sonic the Hedgehog 4. While it's a little upsetting that Blaze and Sonic basically control the same, this game still has a lot of fun, and the speed is still felt in this game. I do think it's a little annoying that both screens are utilized for platforming. It was a nightmare to edit this section. I think that there's some charm in the level design. The bosses are a little easy, but it's one of those kind of pick up and breeze through Sonic games. It's not terrible. It's kind of a middle-of-the-road Sonic game. The only reason why it's better than 3D Blast is because it controls a little easier than it. Also, shout out to my boy Hideki Naganuma for that dope-ass soundtrack! Packed with memorable boss fights and stages, a decent soundtrack, and a really fun special stage, the first game in the franchise may not be the best, but it set a fantastic foundation for this character to take off and make his own into a really well done franchise on its initial run on the Genesis. Even if it's missing some features that the franchise becomes known for, and it's a little slower than the average Sonic game becomes, this is still a fun-ass game to play through and holds up impeccably well today. I did a race of this game a couple years back with one of my buddies, Wexstarn, and that's a really fun watch, and it exemplifies just a lot of charm that's within this game. It's a good game to kind of just sit down and breeze through in an afternoon. It's got some difficulty. It has a nice difficulty ramp, but the levels aren't inherently challenging. It does require you to pay attention, but it still showcases that Sonic is a fast character who is a force to be reckoned with against some of the titans of the time. An incredibly shocking game in its own regard, Sonic Colors oozes personality, down to the fact that its story is so tongue-in-cheek and self-aware.
Purely out of a sense of remorse for my past transgressions, and is in no way associated with any sort of evil plot or premeditated misdeeds.
This game basically acts as a precursor to another game that's on this list, featuring a fantastic blend of the 2D and 3D platforming elements, neither of which feel poorly executed in any regard. The 3D doesn't feel as slippery as it did in Sonic Unleashed, and it still feels super fast, unlike on Sonic the Hedgehog 4! Even if the soundtrack doesn't really have a lot of the charm that a Sonic soundtrack normally has, the rest of the game makes up for that in spades. I think the game is tight. I love the wisps. I think that they add a little bit of a different dynamic to the platforming and allows you to tackle certain scenarios differently, even if some of them are utilized in better areas than others. This game was it was a surprise hit that swept under a lot of radars back in 2010. It's only in the last couple of years kind of garnered a bigger set of accolades that it rightfully deserves, if you ask me. What sets this game apart from other Sonic platformers on portable consoles is all of the elements put into the pot feel balanced. Every playthrough of this game feels different, whether you're using Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, or Amy, who is surprisingly like a mainstay character in this game. The stages, while a little challenging by the end of the game, it's expected in that regard. Nothing feels overtly hard or punishing or unfair. I think the game plays smoothly. It's a little rough around the edges in some regards, but it's a tight game. It's a fun game. It's a small little package that I feel like doesn't overstay its welcome. The worst part of the game really is the Emerald minigame, and even that's pretty passable by Sonic standards. There's far worse ways to get emeralds in Sonic games, and it set a good foundation for the advanced games that ultimately didn't culminate to anything better than this, but it's still a fun game. It's your basic by-the-numbers Sonic game on a portable console. Can't really go wrong with it. I might be letting nostalgia factor a little bit into my love of this game. Yes, it's a little clunky. Even in the parts of the game that I like, it's a little clunky and it gets a little frustrating.
No! Damn it! Fuck!
But I still have fun playing as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and Gamma. Big can fuck right off. Some of the bosses can fuck right off. But in between all of those elements, there's a lot of charm here. It's a fun game. It's a little rough. I can't knock that. I can't deny that. But it's almost like a bad B movie. I love to play it for that reason.
Wow, that dream brought back memories.
It's got some really laughable moments.
All right.
Shut up, Tails. And I love this game. It's so heartwarming. I know that this is a really biased pick, but I like this game a lot. And I acknowledge it may not be the best designed thing in the world. It may be a little dated. Yeah, since everybody slept on Sonic Colors, this got the name of Sonic back in everyone's good graces. And it is just as good of a blending of the 2D and the 3D, only it's a little more split because there's literally 2D Sonic and 3D Sonic in this game. I think the story is a little less tongue-in-cheeky than Colors, but it's still pretty charming. The levels, both the 3D and the 2D, and the remixes of both, work really, really well. This had a lot of thought put into its design and how to make each level different from each other. They're also really well redesigns of the original, so that way you're not replaying through something that you've already played through a million times before if you are a diehard Sonic fan. There's a lot of surprises in this game, and it's just a great experience for both old and new Sonic fans, and it was a great celebration of Sonic on Sonic's birthday. You know, this game has always struck me as a little off, look-wise. The game itself is fine, it's a lot of fun, and it's very forward-thinking in its design, but the look of this game was always weird to me. Outside of that, I do really, really enjoy this game. I think the soundtrack is fantastic. I love the idea of the branching paths with the levels and unlocking different endings depending on how well you do the past or future sections. I think that this game warrants a lot more exploring than your regular Sonic game, and it's definitely one of the more thought-out entries in the 2D Sonic games. I think the boss fights are interesting. I think that the game itself is paced a little weird, but it's worth sinking your teeth into because there's a lot here, and it's a pretty fun game. It's a pretty fun adventure. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Pretty. Holy fuck! No, but seriously, this game reinvents what it means to be a 2D Sonic game. The spins on old mechanics are great. The new mechanics are just as good. The old remix levels are great. The new levels and new mechanics are fucking amazing. The spins on old boss battles are great. The Emerald game is the best in the entire franchise. This is just another love letter to Sonic fans, only this is by Sonic fans. So it's not just, oh, we did this thing that's really charming. This is, hey, we remade this thing and made it really fucking cool and added a bunch of new shit. This game is awesome, bar none. And T. Lopez is the fucking man for this soundtrack. Yes, this was on my Genesis list higher than it is here. As time has gone on, I've just gotten more cold to this game, and I've realized that the #1 pick is a more better designed game. I still hold this game in a high regard. I still think it has the best Emerald Getting minigame, and I still love a lot of the levels in this game. I've already talked this game to death on my soundtracks list and my Genesis games list, so I don't really have much else to add here. It's just a fun classic. It's a great game to revisit. That's about it. I mean, this game is basically 2 games in one. You get the full ride of Sonic 3 and the full ride of Sonic and Knuckles in one tight package. Plus, Sonic and Knuckles was one of my first games I ever got. So that's some hard nostalgia for you. Even if I don't think some of the things are as good as in Sonic 2, like the soundtrack or the Emerald Getting minigame, I think that there is a much fuller experience to have here. I like a lot of the boss battles. I like a lot of the momentum that this game carries, and there is a lot more to do here, whether you're playing as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, or Sonic and Tails. There's a lot of different dynamics to this game, and there's a lot more depth than in Sonic 2. While I think both are pretty close together as far as my favorite Sonic game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles just kind of edges out just a tad. Just because the levels are a little more fleshed out than they are in Sonic 2, and you know, it's still just got that nice little crisp edge over that game.
That was my Sonic list. Now I'm gonna go. I have been ViralRak. You guys like the DSLs and situations. The next list that isn't list season is gonna be not franchise based. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you another day. I have been ViralRak. I'll see you another. I don't know how to do my outro. What the fuck?